It is a traditional Irish tale. But of course you have to tell it the way you see it. There were two sisters, Maggie and Maureen O'Malley. They lived, like so many in an Irish story, in a tiny little cottage on a piece of land that their parents had left them. Now, Maggie and Maureen, why, they were as alike as two peas in a pod and as different as night and day. They divided the chores. One day it would be Maggie in the fields and Maureen home taking care of the house, and the next day it would be just the opposite, because everybody needed a chance to experience everything. Well, on this one particular day, it was Maggie who was out in the fields working, and it was up to Maureen to take care of the household. And she got up early and made her way into town so that she could get supplies for baking. And as she was walking along the lane, she heard this strange sound coming out of the ground. And when she looked down, she saw that there was a wee little man stuck in the crevice of the rock. Well, he was bent backward. Yes, his knees were under him. He was struggling and squirming. And Maureen said, "Just wait a minute. I'll have you out in no time." And she reached in. She pulled him up out of the rock, set him down on the ground, dusted him off, straightened his little cap. And it took him a moment or two to get himself righted. But then he looked up at her and he said, "Well, so you know, when humans help out fairies, we have to give you some wishes. So you have 3 wishes. What would they be?" "Well," said Maureen, "that's quite a responsibility. I mean, there are a lot of things I could wish for. And you know, I live with my sister Maggie, and it would not be right for me to make that decision by myself, because of course it would affect the 2 of us." "It's fine. The wishes are good for a year. They're for you and your sister. Thank you very much." And off went the ferryman. Well, I can tell you right now that there was very little housework done on that particular day, because Maureen went back home and she spent the entire day thinking about all of the possibilities. I mean, 3 wishes was indeed an extraordinary responsibility. And she thought and she thought and she thought and she thought. And at the end of the day, when Maggie came home, tired and hungry, there was Maureen, pacing the floor of that tiny cottage. The minute Maggie walked in, Maureen said, "You're just not going to believe it, Maggie. I can't tell you, the most extraordinary thing happened today. I was walking down, I was heading off to the town. I was going to get some stuff for dinner. And, you know, this ferryman, I just helped him right out of the crevice in the rock, and he gave us 3 wishes. Now, I've been thinking all day, there are a lot of things that we could wish for. You know, with the house, it needs new thatch. But why waste a wish on something as simple as, you know, just thatch on a house? Maybe we should, wish for a house, a whole house. Or maybe what we should do is wish for a whole farm. And that way we would have a house and a farm and a way to make money. But then, of course, you know, we need more people to work. So maybe we also need to wish for servants. And maybe we should wish for some money." And poor Maggie was overwhelmed. And she sat down and she said, a fairy and... "Maureen, have you done anything about dinner?" "Oh, no, Maggie. I've been just so busy thinking, and we have to sit down and discuss it right now." And Maureen sat down at the other side of the table and looked right at Maggie. And Maggie kept looking around. There wasn't a pot boiling on the stove. There was no tea. There was nothing. And she was listening to Maureen go on and on about the possibilities for wishes. And finally, Maggie just looked at her and she said, "You know, to tell you the truth, Maureen, what I really would wish for right now is a plate of sausages." That's it. No sooner had she said those words than there on the table was a steaming plate of delicious hot sausages. Maureen took one look at Maggie. "Maggie O'Malley, what is the matter with you? 3 wishes. It's an enormous responsibility, and we have a lot of things that we need, and you went and wasted a wish on sausages. Oh, I tell you, I wish those sausages were stuck to your nose. Wish number 2. There were the sausages stuck to Maggie's nose, hanging off. I have to tell you, a string of sausages hanging off your sister's nose is not an attractive sight.
Kind of redefines booger, doesn't it?
Oh, it redefines a lot of things. And there was poor Maureen. Oh, I'm so sorry, Maggie. Oh, I'm so sorry. She tried everything. At first, she got out the shears and she tried to artfully cut them off, but those sausages would not come off. And then she came out with the butcher knife, at which point Maggie said, no, something else. You got to try something else. Well, they tried a lot of things. Maggie even lay right down on the kitchen floor. Maureen put her feet on either one of her shoulders, grabbed hold of those sausages with all her might. She yanked and she yanked and she yanked for over an hour until Maggie thought her head was going to come off. And finally they realized there was no choice at all. They had to use the last and final wish to get rid of the sausages on Maggie's nose, because you really can't let your sister walk around with sausages from her nose. And so at the end of the day, after all of that thinking and all of that wishing, Maggie and Maureen had no more than they started with. And in fact, they had quite a bit less, because they still had no dinner on the table. And that is what comes of wishing for the wrong things. And that's the story.